You can hear me. You guys are going to have to bear with me. I just spilled coffee all over the joint. Volume good, guys? Are we having sound? Obviously, we have video. Can you guys hear me? Kaleidoscope and Knives, you got sound. That's good. Is it loud enough? Unfortunately, the way things are set up here, I can't pull the laptop closer to me. And I'm stuck using the built-in microphone because my microphone is, I'm not sure. It's not working. It's working on the camera, but it won't work through. Actually, I wonder. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to test something out, which I don't think it's going to work. But give me a second. Now that I lost my microphone cable. Let's try this one. Show me your, oh boy. Then we got, guys want to see ding dongs in here, and it's, the only ding dong you're going to see is me. Which I don't know if that's good or bad. All right, how's that? That doesn't seem to be working, so. Testing. No, all right, well. No go on the external microphone. I'm stuck using the built-in mic on the laptop. So hopefully you guys can hear me good. If you guys have any questions, photo related or not, go ahead and ask. I am going to put up a little setup. I'm going to shoot a couple of shots with the phone because I think that's probably what most of you guys are using. And I will upload those to the computer and we will see what we can do. I'm looking now to see if maybe I might have a couple of test photos we could use. I'm not going to say I'm lucky most of the time, but I try to at least get a decent enough angle and decent enough light that I'm able to just do simple things like boost exposure or whatever. And I 99% of the time use editing software. I don't use what's on the phone. mainly because the phone, it's too hard for me to see details on the screen. And it's easier on the computer. I have obviously bigger screens, so I do have a photo here that I can share. Portable light setup. Portable light setup, I guess it depends on if you're planning on shooting just, like if you're going to shoot in the grass, or if you want like a light box, or if you want just like a standard desk lamp or something like that, depending on your environment, where you're shooting. If it's outdoors, you'll need something that's rechargeable, or you'll need, if you got where you have an extension cord that you can plug in a light. I would recommend something that's like what's called an ice light. Basically, if you guys remember the lights that Cole showed, the stick lights, basically you want something like that, especially if it's rechargeable. The only issue you're going to have is you'll probably have to hold the light unless you have a tripod to put it on. So that limits you to one hand shooting with your phone, which means you'll have to figure out a way to prop your phone up against something to give you the steadiest shot. A lot of time what happens with cell phones, they translate too much body movement, handshake, or your body leaning forward and back. You won't see that visually because your eyes and your equilibrium, they're used to it, so you'll never feel it, you'll never see it. But depending on the type of camera, a cell phone in particular, it's going to pick up on those things. So even if you move forward or back just a slight bit, it could throw your shot out of focus. It'll also change the depth of field, which could put parts of the focus part of the picture out of focus. But a stick light, even can't even think of the name of them, but Milwaukee or whatever the brand is that Harbor Freight has, they have the flexible head LED lights. Those will be good because they're small and they throw a decent amount of light. The only problem with that is, and with any type of external light, is your ability to, this is a flashlight, but your ability to not have directed light, because what that's going to do is it's going to always add reflections. So even if I can change the amount of light, so this is the midnight mode on this flashlight. Even if I change the amount of light, the difference between what you're seeing here, which is room light versus direct light, you're unless you have a good angle where you can not have bounce back from the light, you're going to get highlights, blown highlights. You're going to get your shadows are going to be too bright to where you won't see a lot of detail. There's really not, apart from lighting, there's really not too much you can do with the cell phone. There are tricks, but depending on what you're doing and what your environment is, sometimes the tricks won't work. So let's say you're shooting outside and it's dark out. The phone is going to adjust exposure for darkness. It'll make it brighter. The issue with that is you're going to get high level noise. You're going to get a lot of noise in your shadows, and you still might not get a bright enough shot to get you good detail. The flip side to that is when you're shooting at night, even if you're using a professional camera, it's always going to look like you shot at night. Even if you edit it on a computer, you boost exposure on the computer, you change your highlights and your shadows, your midtones, it's always going to look like you shot at night. It's you know, it's an issue with just how things are lit. You know, you look at the difference between shooting in direct sunlight versus shooting when it's overcast. When it's overcast, it's better light because it's a diffuse light and it's spread out. When you're shooting under sunlight, it's direct light. It's like using a flash on the camera. Direct light is always going to give you the worst light. It's going to light your subject, but it's not good light. So the best thing to do, give me a second, I'm just reading your comments. You guys see Mr. Spock, but you don't see, there's your little, there you go. You guys can have that. And you know, like I say, the phone is always going to like the best light. I want to say the best light, but really the phone likes any light. The phone, even with newer phones, the latest technology is really good lens wise, like glass wise, you know, which would, you know, would be glass on a regular lens, but on a phone, it's probably a composite type of material. The reason why camera lenses work better is because they have multiple groupings of glass. So each lens, if the grouping is 3 pieces of glass, 2 pieces of glass, 3 pieces of glass, all contained within the same lens, it gives it such a better ability to see detail and clarity. Like your eye will never see what a camera will see. Your eye will never see, you know, such a broad depth of color, a broad depth of detail. And that can be seen with how you edit a photo, where you might take a picture and you see it and yeah, it looks okay, but you do things in editing that make it look, I don't want to say better, but it makes it look better. You change the brightness, you change the contrast, you change the exposure or the clarity, saturation, highlights, anything. And it looks better because you're bringing out that detail that your eye wouldn't normally see. There's, you know, my eyes, you know, they're not really that good, but over the years I've noticed, and that's why I shoot the way I shoot. I've noticed that what I see in real life, that's what I want to see in photos. And that's really what gave me enough popularity over the years that I've never had a business card. I have business cards. I've probably used 10 of them in, I don't even know how many years, you know, since 08. I still have the same business cards that I had when I went, you know, from 08, 09, and I've used probably 10 of them. 90% of the work I've done has been word of mouth. It's been through people seeing my work, and they know what the subject is supposed to look like. So when it looks like that in a photo, that's, you know, it's that truism that sells it. I'm reading the comments again, guys. Give me a second. Anyway, going back to portable light, you're going to want something that's easy to carry, something that's easy to use. I would look at, and I'm going to look it up actually. I know Nebo is a good company. They have flashlights that have side lights on them. I don't know if they have flip lights. I think they do. Well, this one's not. I know Harbor Freight does. I don't remember what their brand is, if it's Icon or Braun, that's the one. But if you look at these, it's rechargeable, it's magnetic base. Give me a second here. Let's see what we can do. It's magnetic base. They throw out a pretty good amount of light. The head is flexible, so you can aim it. Outdoors, you probably won't have anything magnetic to stick it to, but you can stand it up, or you can angle the head in such a way. And some of them have hooks on them, so you could hook it to a tree branch or something like that. But you could angle the head in a way where you could hook it to something and let it hang. But I would start with something like that. It's going to be super cheap, and it'll either work or it won't. The only thing, like I say, is when you're using your phone, the way that light is angled and how you angle the phone towards your subject, that's what's going to give you the best lighting effect. It's never going to be as good as daylight. It's never going to be as good. Lighting works when it's diffuse. So even when you're doing something like on-camera flash, most of the shots, Jesus, probably 95% of the shots that I post on the Discord or I post online, they're all done with on-camera flash, or they're done with off-camera flash with triggers, and it's never directed at the subject. It's always directed into the room, at a wall, at the ceiling, because bouncing light, that's what's going to give you the best light, is overall diffuse light. That's why I recommend to people always shoot when you're indoors, shoot in a room that's the brightest, which is typically your kitchen or your bathroom. And beauty filter for knives. Barry, yeah, you can use a gimbal. Typically what I do, so my thing with photography is being minimal. I usually don't like to use a tripod. I don't like to have a lot of extra stuff to carry around. So I've taught myself how to brace the camera, or when I'm using my phone, how to brace the phone in such a way that all I need is I can set it into the crook of my other arm, or I can hold it against my body, in such a way where there's no shake. It's easy to teach yourself stuff like that. And really, when it's on the fly, when you're out somewhere taking a picture, you're not going to have equipment with you. You're going to have your phone, and that's it. So learn how to stabilize it against your other arm. Learn how to stabilize it against a wall or a table, a stack of books, and something that you can get a solid grip to. If you're going to carry stuff, a small gimbal will work. A stabilizing rig is probably the best, but who wants to spend that kind of money? If that's the case, I would rather just spend the money on actual camera gear, a digital SLR and a couple of good lenses and some flash. And the difference of that is, and really most of not most of the time, but some of the time when you're shooting, you're going to see the cell phone's going to take just as good a picture as a camera. The only difference is you have a extremely large ability in editing with a camera than you do with a cell phone. Cell phone is always going to have more noise. It's always going to have more noise and artifacting in the shadows and things like that. So you're going to edit to a certain point, and you're going to start to see issues. With a camera, you can do so much with the camera before you even take the shot that you can eliminate a ton of problems. Camera with 6 stops of stabilization. So Canon L lenses, now they have, I think, up to 4 stops. They used to have only up to 2 stops, which is why Sigma was always better, because Sigma stabilization was always 4 stops. It's it's useful, but sometimes not. So if you're doing close-ups, if you're doing stuff like shooting knives, most of the time you probably won't see much improvement, stabilized versus not stabilized. It helps, but if you have a proper technique holding the camera, a lot of times stabilization, you won't notice it. That's for when you're shooting certain subjects. You're shooting subjects that are at a distance. You're shooting uh, where you can't keep your body steady, things like that. I can Photoshop anything on a knife. Shit, lanyards, that's easy. That's easy to Photoshop. Stabilization for action, it depends on the action. If the lens has two modes of stabilization where it does uh, panning stabilization, that's good for, if you're doing racing or shooting airplanes, air shows, things like that. Normal stabilization where it's all axis, that's good for everything. And really, like I say, if you have good camera technique, if you know how to brace the camera, if you know how to cradle the lens in your arm or whatever, sometimes you don't notice it. I use stabilization. Most of my lenses are stabilized. Most of the time, I don't really notice it. I can turn it off. I don't really notice it because I have pretty solid uh, technique for holding the camera. Even with my bigger lens, my wildlife lens, which is a Sigma 150 to 600, I rarely see much difference in the stabilization. In fact, sometimes I turn it off because I wind up fighting it. Crazy Roach, it's really not a lot to learn. It's really not. Even with the cell phone, like I say, most modern cell phones, they take a pretty good picture. So if you look at, give me a second here, where am I at? I lost the mouse. So if you look at where I'm at right now, I'm going to aim the camera down. It's basically top of my desk. And I have an under monitor light that I use to be able to see the keyboard. But if I turn it off, you see there's not a lot of light. This light here, that's one of my side lights in the room. My main light is the ceiling light fan, which that's it. And it's an amber cast. It's a cool white or warm white. That's going to always give you the yellow light. You always want to have light that's daylight, that's blue. And that's going to give you a better overall color. It's the same as sunlight. Outdoors, it's not, there's no warm color cast. There's no orangish tones. It's always a bluish tone because that's how the sun transmits light. And even when it's cloudy out, that's how it's going to look. It's not going to be, yellowish colors like this. It's going to be blue. It's going to look more blue. And that can be fixed with color temperature changes and stuff like that in editing. But you can see the difference how this looks versus how this, like, it looks more orange. But most of the time, and using just the light from the fan, if I pick something to shoot, if I shoot with the cell phone, depending on where I put my angles to the light and how I shoot, if I want to get rid of shadows and stuff like that, it just depends. And the other thing too, this is all digital. You can take, 6 or 7 shots in a matter of a couple of seconds and go through which ones you like the most and go with those. You don't have to just take one shot and stop. You can do whatever you want. Same thing with a digital SLR. I can take freaking 3,000 pictures and delete all of them because I don't like them, and take 3,000 more. Yeah, it's not a lot to learn. The thing about photography, any kind of photography with any kind of gear, whether it's uh, actual cameras, whether it's cell phone, it's all the same. There's basically a very very minor um, minor stuff that's going to make an impact. The biggest thing, no matter what, is light. You always want to try to get the best light you can. Sometimes you're not going to be able to. That's where you can fake light on the computer, go through editing. And that's, exposure, color temperature, clarity, your brightness and your contrast, your highlights, your midtones, your shadows, all of that shit. There's a ton of stuff that can be done. My main program that I've used for I don't even know how many years. I've been on this program. So I use PaintShop Pro. I believe this is X2. And the reason why I use it is because it does the same thing as Photoshop. Photoshop has a little bit more depth to it. Like its transform tool, you can do more with it. It has a little bit better ability, but not enough that it's not enough that you would use that versus anything else. So PaintShop Pro, the reason why I like it is because you can basically customize the entire workspace. So everything that's on the screen, all of these tools on the top, on the left, on the bottom, this is all customized. I can customize and I can add a tool. I can get rid of a tool. Photoshop, you can't do that. You have to have multiple palettes open. You have to use keyboard macros. You have to go through menus. It takes too much time. Something like this, if I want to work on the picture from start to finish, I open the picture. What I can do, first thing I can do, if I want to change exposure, I can make it brighter. Simple as that. If I want to do it in Photoshop, I have to go to a menu. I have to have a palette opened, which means I need to clutter up my screen, or I need two screens so I can have my main screen on one and my palettes on another screen. Too much of a pain in the butt. Way too much of a pain in the butt. Barry, I'm going to tell you something. The rule of thirds and any other photography rule, you might as well throw that stuff in the garbage. It's meaningless, absolutely meaningless. It doesn't mean a thing. What's going to make a difference is not what you want and not what the rules want, but what the people viewing your picture want. Rule of thirds, cropping to the left, all that nonsense. It's all photography school nonsense. There's no reason to waste your time with that stuff. It's like I tell people, there's no reason to waste their time going to photography school, because anything you want to learn, you can learn in 5 minutes by picking up a camera. That stuff is it's nonsense. There's no such thing to rules when it comes to photography. Rules are completely useless. Completely useless. So like I say, so I can make it brighter, I can make it darker. The other thing I can do, PaintShop Pro has a tool called One Stop Photo Fix, which sometimes will help, sometimes won't. But usually what you can do is, as you're editing, you can tailor fit what you're doing, to the shot. But this one is from a cell phone, from my iPhone, and depending on what I want it to look like, so there's going to be a little bit of highlight issues because of the direction of the light. But if I, and really, this is something that I probably wouldn't edit. I would just take the shot, and if I was going to upload it to Discord or whatever, just to show it. But something like this with the discrepancies in the background and how it's dirty and there's spots and stuff, to edit that stuff out, I wouldn't waste the time. But a lot of things what you can do, and I'm just doing this really quick. Give me a second. I'll explain some techniques to you guys so you understand better. But most of the time, anything that you're going to do, it's going to be similar for every subject. Like, I don't change. Oh, crap! I forgot what size I made that. That's all right. We can. We'll go back. We'll go back. But just to see a little bit of difference it makes, where it opens up detail, you don't lose detail. You get a little bit more tonal differences, and then you can change things like your color temp. So let's say if you thought it was too blue, you could change your color temperature. And what this will do things like, if you're trying to think of what would show that. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to look for something that might show it better. See, that doesn't show it. I would have to dig up a picture to so you guys would see how much difference color temperature changes would what it would do. This one might work. So let's say you take a shot and it's like it looks orange to you, like it's got that color tone to it. Like, you can see how a temperature change makes that like overall color of the shot different. For knives, it would depend on your background more than anything else, because the knife itself, depending on what it looks like, your color tones are usually going to be hitting the blade, which you can select, and you can desaturate it or whatever. But no rule is a rule. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not a big rule guy, and over the years, people that, no offense to other photographers, but people that quote rules, unfortunately, like I say, there's no rules to photography, none at all. Trying to find something that I could show color tone differences when you're changing from what would be warm white to cool white. So let me see. Maybe I could do it on purpose. And within this program, they also have where you can remove color cast. It doesn't really work as effectively as you would want it to. And this, I mean, it shows it, but not a lot. I would have to really, I'd really have to go nuts with it. I'm trying to think if I have any existing photos that are not color corrected to where I could correct it and you guys can see it. But The only thing I could do is maybe go to an extreme, or I could add color to it. But you'll see, and like I say, with a knife itself, generally what you would do is you would just either desaturate, and still even going extremes, you still really can't see. You can't see on the computer too good. Depending on, I can't think off the top of my head which knife would be a good example. I've got so many pictures, it's not even funny. It's just, I can never remember, time to time what pictures, I would do, what I've done to them. But, well, maybe the Spyderco, maybe the Stovepipe. You guys can see a little bit of color in the background, the overall shot. If I was going to change something, I would probably just desaturate or switch to, so that's desaturating, takes all the color out. And you can see the difference when I toggle the layer. You can see how much difference there is. I would either do that, or I would just change it to black and white. So I'd either do grayscale, or, and this is something I do a lot, I would use the black and white tool, which they call it a filter effect. It's like a photo effect, and what you can do is you can pick which colors are changed. So it comes out black and white, but what it does is it allows a little bit more enhancement of certain areas because of their color tones. This one, it probably won't really work because it's, it's not set up, the shot is not set up like that. But for something like that, if you don't have a selection tool, you would just desaturate and then run back and erase over where you don't want the change to go. So that'll make the blade look like there's no color to it. It'll make it look more like steel. That depends on how it looks in real life, but desaturating, and really you can select just the blade too. I mean, it works either way. But you can see where, I don't know if you can really do good detail, but you can see how it changes. There's no more color on the blade. And really overall, to the photo, that's kind of what you want. You want the blade to look like the blade. You don't want crazy color tones to it. You don't want a lot of reflection, because it doesn't have those kinds of colors only when direct light's hitting it. So if you're in your room and you're looking at it under regular light, it's only going to look like that when you tip it to reflect the light. Otherwise, it's going to look plain. I know I have knife photos with the blade that looks messed up from the light. I can't think off the top of my head which ones, but need them. Did you send them on the Discord? I'm always eager to edit photos. Always. And the reason is because it not only does it help to teach people how to do things to their own photos. So let's say you take a photo, whether it's with a cell phone or not, and you have some editing skills, but you always feel like you're missing something. if somebody else edits your photo and you like it and you ask them what they did, they might say, oh, I, did a brightness, I did saturation, whatever. Could be all the same things you're doing, but they might have did a little bit different. I used the clarity tool, I used a topaz adjust or whatever, and they do, um, one or two things that you probably wouldn't think about or you don't know about that can be done. So really, for example, let's take it for what it is. I'm a professional photographer. I have been for many, many years. It doesn't mean diddly. The way that I shoot is the way that I shoot. And a lot of time what will happen is, even if I'm using professional gear, I'm using a digital SLR, I'm using good lenses, I'm using flash, so everything's perfect. Not necessarily. So this shot in particular, and this is one of the tricks of photography. This is one of the reasons why you have to have a pretty good understanding of the depth of what you can get from editing and what different software will do. Lightroom is pretty good because there's a lot of presets that you could just do, open up the picture and do one thing and it's good. Plugins like Topaz Adjust and things like that. So let's say, for example, you're going to use Topaz Adjust. Topaz Adjust has a ton of just simple, already done, ready to go editing things where you can do one thing, apply it, and you're good to go. Whether it's going to do a clarity adjustment, which this, it's darker, it won't show up, but things like the HDR pop or HDR stretch, things like that, stuff like this. Well, yeah, it's brighter, but it looks HDR. There's too much clarity issues. So something like this, I would use, and this is the perfect condition. It's laid out perfect. I use the flash. You would think it would be perfect. It's not. It's underexposed, but I can fix it. It's super easy. I duplicate the layer. I change the layer properties to screen, and that basically it. I don't know what the ratio is. I don't think it's double, but what it does is it steps up the overall brightness of the shot. In the same regard, if you have something that's underexposed, and this is not a perfect thing. It's not going to be perfect. It has to be. You have to tailor how you do it to the photo. But let's say, for example, I want to keep brightening it. I just keep, after I duplicate the layer and switch the layer properties to screen, I just keep duplicating the layer until I get it to the brightness I want. In the same regard, if I don't do that, let's say I just duplicate my layer and I go to my highlights, my midtones, my shadows, I can change that. The only difference there is you're going to have to know what each adjustment does. You're going to have to know how it affects the photo. It's a lot easier to just duplicate the layer, change the layer properties to screen, and then duplicate that layer until you get to the brightness you want. In the same regard, if it's too bright, and this, sometimes it's not going to work because if you have blown highlights or your shadows are too deep, it'll just end up looking like crap. Let's say it's too bright. I like the shot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to change the layer properties to multiply. Makes it dark. So that in itself gives you in just a crazy amount of ability, because in that alone, let's say you're well, let's screw up. Hang on a second, guys. I got to go back here. So let's say you're just in regards to your underexposed. You want to change, you want it to be brighter. So you're going to duplicate your layer, change your layer properties to screen, duplicate that layer, get it to the brightness you want. Let's say, maybe I went too far. You can change your opacity. So you see, changing my opacity changes the application, how much that layer property changes. And this works for any piece of editing. So my technique, what I do is I do my editing and then I merge the layers. I don't want to work on individual layers. I don't want to have 7 different layers open and keep going back to work on each individual layer. I do my layer, then I merge the layers. And the reason for that is because I might want to stop here, I'm going to stop here. So I merge the layer. If I want to do something different, like let's say I want to use the one-step photo fix and see what it does, whether I like it or not, I can delete the layer, I can just undo it, whatever. If I want to do my clarity boost and see what that does, I do that. Now, if I like the way that looks, but I want to change how much the effect is applied, I just change the opacity of the layer. So I still have a little bit of effect. I get a little bit of opening of the shadows. I get a little bit of closing of the highlights. So it balances out the photo. And that's usually what your clarity adjustment, that's what you want to look for. You want to look for overall how it affects the photo. It drops your highlights. It brings out your shadows. It balances the picture. In the same regard, if I wanted to do brightness and contrast, if I thought the photo was too flat, I could change my brightness and contrast. Same thing. I go back to my opacity and I change it to what I want. I toggle the layer on and off to see how it looks. If I like the way it looks, I save it. If I don't like the way it looks, I'll start from scratch, or I'll erase the layer or whatever. Same thing here. If it's too dark, I go to my duplicate layer. I change it to screen. I get it to the brightness I want. Like let's say I want it bright. Now it's bright. In that same regard, what I can do, like if I don't like the way the pivot looks, if I think the pivot's too bright, I can take my eraser and erase just the pivot. And the good thing about this, as long as these layers are open, I can do as much changing to that pivot as I want. To get it to where I want, the brightness and the color tone that I want. Obviously, it takes a steady hand, unless you're using a stylus. But if I change the overall properties of the layer, depending on which layer, I still get basically the same effect. So then after that, if I wanted to do my clarity boost, you see how it opens up the whole shot. And what you're going to get is you're going to get stuff like this, which is basically, the blade is dirty or whatever. Your choices are to reshoot or, change the application of that effect or do something to clean that up. You could use a clone tool and clone it out, which if you choose the right parts of the blade to clone to where your color tones are going to match. Otherwise, you're going to see where it looks different because your color tones on the overall length of that, they're not going to match. You can do it if you You know, if you do it on a separate layer and change the layer opacity to match what you want, but Terry, so Photoshop now, I think with that Creative Cloud nonsense that they have, from what I understand, it's pretty expensive. I haven't paid for Photoshop in probably 20 years. I always download it from torrents, but I'll never knock its ability. It's a great program, but there's plenty of programs out there that'll do the same thing. GIMP is a great program. I don't prefer it. I would rather, you know, I've been using PaintShop Pro for so many years. I'm used to it. I like the way it's laid out. I like that I can make the entire workspace work for what I want. So I stick with it. The other good thing about PaintShop Pro, which I love, so Photoshop has its content aware. It has its own removal tools. PaintShop Pro has what's called blemish remover. And basically what it does is it's basically like content aware, where if you've got a spot, and I'll do this for, you know, if there's spots on there that I think are going to be distracting to the eye, I'll get rid of them. You know, if there's you forgot to clean the knife before you took a picture, or you didn't see there was a spot on it before you took the picture, and you see it later, you can fix it. So let's say, for example, I got a spot on the blade. Whoop. You know, I got a couple of spots on the blade, and I didn't realize it now. Oh, crap. Now I got spots on the blade. This object remover, I can get rid of those. And you'll see the circle. The inside circle is what it's replacing. The outside circle is what it's sampling from. So especially on a knife blade, a knife handle, something like that, when you do this, there's zero effect. There's no color, tone differences where you did it. It looks exactly like it's supposed to look. So you don't have to worry about that. Something like this, if you're lucky enough to do it, you can use it on it. But bigger spaces, what typically happens is your blending doesn't work. So you see the details of the blade, they don't match. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If I had some that I knew was dirty, I would show you. But it's basically, you know, it's basically like I say, if you have spots, and that it's so much easier to use than Photoshop's content aware. If you've got spots, and they could be little ones, they could be big ones. You just adjust the size of the brush. But you know, I use that for everything. It's one of my favorite tools to use. So PaintShop Pro, I honestly don't know what version they're up to now. It could be X4, could be something completely different. I don't have a clue. But let's see. What I'm using now is X2. PaintShop Pro. There's a certain point where the software changed. So basically, what you're seeing here, let me share this again. What you're seeing here is what they would call the organizer. They used to call it a browser. They call it organizer. Photoshop has I think they call theirs a browser. Theirs is a separate window. This is in the main window. So my editing window, my organizer window, all the same. So if I'm looking through photos, this is all within. I don't have to switch windows. I don't have to switch screens. It's all the same screen, all the same window. The workspace is the workspace. So if I want to open the photo, if I want to edit it, whatever I want to do, I do it. When I save it, when I close it, I'm back to the browser. So no matter what happens, I'm always in the program. I don't have to go to other screen. I don't have to go down to taskbars and toggle screens. I don't have to, Windows key toggle screens. I don't have to do any of that. I can go through and do everything I want from this main screen, and not have to worry. I'm a man of, little patience, and I'm lazy as hell. I want what I do to be as simple as it can be. That's why I tailor everything I do to be simple. I just want, simple, get it done quick. I hate being on the computer editing, especially if I'm doing it for a client where it's paid work. Once it gets to a point where it feels like work, it's not fun anymore. So I try to spend as little time on the computer as I can. That's why my editing style. That's why I edit the way I do. That's why I've taught myself tricks. How to do things. To make the picture look as the best I can. Before I edit it. So my editing takes the shortest amount of time. Lord, where did you send the pictures? Are they on the Discord, or did you email them to me? I'd like to see if you have photos that you sent. I'd like to see them. I'd like to edit them. I don't have any messages from you, so I don't even know if you're still here. Is anybody still here? I'm still here. So let's see where we're at here. I want to see. So here's the shots that I took with the phone a little while ago. And actually, here's a good one that might show the color tone differences. So, like I say, if I had a shot that I thought the color tone was off, the temperature was off, which it's the same. If somebody says temperature is the same thing as your color balance. So it's basically the same thing. It's gonna be the same result. You can see the original, it looks more blue. This one looks more orange. So regardless of where your original is, so my original looks blue. If I wanted to introduce a little bit more warmth to it, and I changed the color tone, and then I changed the opacity of my layer, I could tune that to whatever color I want. In the same regard, if you have one that's what you might think is a little bit more orangish, or you think that you would rather have a different color tone to it, you could change your color tone, your temperature, to where you see how that looks more blue. And then I could change the opacity of my layer to get it to where I want. Obviously, and it's a thing too, like I say, you guys can see like detail wise, it looks good, but where you would want to see better detail, the phone isn't going to do it. The phone, because it's being processed digitally in the phone, you're always going to have issues with noise. You're always going to have issues with artifacting. So any editing you do is going to bring that out. So even if you had a what you would consider a perfect photo, it's not going to wind up looking perfect. And something like this, if I was going to edit it, my first thing to do would be the one-step photo fix. And the reason for that is because the computer is going to pick what it thinks is the best overall options for the picture. If I like it, I'll keep it. If I don't, I won't. But you can see as I toggle this layer on and off, you can see how it affects it. And if I change my opacity so it's not so strong, the difference there, it's not really a lot, but when I try to do my clarity adjustments or I try to do my brightness and contrast adjustments, they won't translate to the cell phone photo as it would to a camera photo, because like I say, the camera always sees better detail, it always sees better clarity. So you won't see those same problems unless the picture is pretty far gone. You won't see those same problems with a camera photo as you would with a cell phone. So you can see the difference of the editing I did from the original and this one. You get a little bit more detail in the carbon fiber. The photo itself, overall exposure, like if you look at the whole picture, this side matches this side a little bit better, and you can see that the subject, overall, it's a little bit better. It's really only going to be as good as it's going to be. Cell phones, they take great photos if they got perfect light. You never have perfect light. Needham, you've got my email, don't you? If you want to send it to my email, go ahead. It doesn't matter to me. Actually, Kaleidoscope, I thought I edited one the other day. Well, here, I'll tell you what. Here's a good example for color tones. And this one more for color cast, but let me see what I'm doing here. Ooh, sorry, I just yawned. I'm not bored, not tired. I'm old. I yawn a lot. Oh, and just in case anybody's wondering, you can tell Tri-State I am using my camera cup. So, bleh. So, Kaleidoscope of Knives. Basically, what you want to do, depending on the overall shot. So right now, as it is, I would see some issues with the detail in the head only because the light is brighter on the head. What you would have to do for that is change your angle. The direction of where you're shooting from. You can't change the light angle because it's probably a fixed light on the tank, but a couple of things you could do is, depending on the light source, you could use a sheet of paper, copy paper, cover the light with it, and take a shot. What it'll do is it'll remove the color cast from the light, It might make the photo a little bit darker because you're putting something in front of the light, but what it'll do is it'll give you a little bit better color tone. And if you're shooting with the cell phone should compensate for the exposure. If you're using a camera, obviously you can change the exposure on the camera yourself. And in that same regard, if you're using a camera, if you have a flash, you can use the flash. But for this, the two things you can do, one is you can just change the saturation. And what I would do is I would choose the colors that are abundant in there. So the greens and the yellows, I would drop those down. Just drop them all the way down. It won't matter because what you're going to do is you're going to change the opacity of the layer to get it to where you want it. Now you can see a little bit of difference. Like if I drop it down all the way, obviously it's going to look black and white. So that takes a little bit of fine tuning. The other thing you can do is you can use your color temperature tool, and depending on the shot and how the computer is going to see the shot, you can remove your color casting and just change your temperature to to reflect what color temperature you want. This one you would have to kind of pick and choose, but you can see at least in the log and in most of him predominantly, you get a lot better color tone, and you get a little bit better detail in his head. So if that was where I wanted it to be, I would go to my clarity adjustment, and what that's going to do, it's going to look kind of weird. You see how everything gets darker? It gets kind of not muted, but overall, it just makes your midtones darker. It makes your shadows darker. Some shadows it'll bring out better. Some it'll darken. So I'm saying the clarity tool, it kind of gives you like a overall evening out of the photo. Then you change your opacity of your layer to suit what you want, keeping in mind that what you do here with your clarity, the other things you can do is certain spots that you think are wrong, you can erase over them. So now you see the difference of his eye that I erased over that clarity adjustment. So now his eye is brought back out, and you can do that for any piece of the photo. If there was a part that you thought was lost, just erase over it to get rid of that effect. After that, you just do standard adjustments, brightness, contrast, highlights, things like that, fill light, things like that. So Paint Shop Pro has what's called fill light. So let's say, and I wouldn't leave it like this, but let's say you think you want to get a little bit better lighting, as if you use a flash. That's what this tool emulates, is what would happen if there was a flash. And then, like I say, you can change your opacity of your layer, so you get a little bit opening up of the shadows underneath. You get a little bit opening up of the overall shadows in like the bark of the tree branch, and you're not really changing too much on him. Other than that, really what I would do is I would look at just fixing things that were personal preference, or do things to eliminate what would distract from the eye. My biggest thing is to always see the subject, which is why the majority of the time when I'm shooting knives or things like that, I don't want anything in the picture. Like photo dump, EDC dumps, things like that. I think a lot of you guys do really awesome photo, EDC dumps. I think they're cool. I don't like them because over the years of being paid to shoot product, I've just gotten to the point where I want to see. Tell me how many times you've watched a reviewer. I just watched one last night. Drives me up a wall. They're going to do a review of the knife, and they don't show you the knife. Drives you nuts, doesn't it? They'll talk for 20 minutes and don't even open a box yet. I came here for the knife. I didn't come here for your life story. I didn't come here to learn about your flashlights. I want you to open the box, open the knife, show me the knife, and then you can tell me whatever story you want. There's a guy on YouTube, Discerning Man. He does the best. You don't bullshit around. He's got his own little, quirks that he does. He gets right to it. He opens the box. He takes out the knife. He gets rid of all the box and everything and shows you the knife. Then he does a teardown, puts it back together, shows you the knife, flips it up and down, whatever. Got no fluff, got no extra shit. Shows you the knife. Show me the knife. I watched a lefty video last night, 12 minutes. 12 minutes before he even brought the box out and showed the knife. Stuff like that. Yeah, I'm fast forwarding it because I don't want to wait all night. I want to see the knife. But stuff like that, that's going to kill the channel for me. I don't want all of that nonsense. I don't. If I want nonsense, I'll watch TV. When I'm looking at knife reviews, I want to see the knife. Guys on Instagram, when they're showing the knife and they got it in their hand and they're rolling it around in their hand, yeah, the scales look great. Can you open it, fucking knife? Open it up. I want to see the blade. I don't want no goofiness. So everything, what I do in editing, that's why I learned how to use all the different clone tools and object removers and things like that. So when I'm doing stuff and there's stuff that I think is going to be distracting, I get rid of it. And stuff like that, you won't even notice. You won't even think it was there. You won't even know. So other than that, I would look at overall photo quality, sharpness, color, things like that, where after I've fixed the color tones and got them to where I wanted, and really like this, I don't know. I haven't seen this particular lizard in person, so I don't know what coloring it has. You would have to tailor your editing to match what the lizard looks like. But after that, so things like I'm a sucker for eyeballs. I could shoot eyeballs all day long. I love eyeballs. So I'll tend to do things with eyes that bring them out a little bit better. And one of the things that brings it out is a sharpening brush and saturation. So if I did saturation and sharpening just to bring out the eye a little bit better. And like I said, I would do that on layers just so I could change the opacity if it was a little bit too much or too little. But other than that, really like something like this, if I did any kind of noise reduction, I would have to be careful that I didn't lose detail in the lizard. So I would probably do noise reduction to clean up the background and then just, deselect or erase over the lizard himself. But I would look and see how the noise reduction affected him. If you didn't see, a marked loss in detail, I wouldn't care. I would just leave it the way it is. Otherwise, I would use the eraser and erase over the spots that I thought were, affected by it. But overall, it's a good shot. It's a shot that's easy to work on. But like I say, with a cell phone, you're going to see like areas like this, that artifacting. There's nothing you can do about that with a cell phone. There's nothing at all. It's digital. It's done digitally in the phone, and certain things you just can't fix. There's no fix for them. As opposed to a shot from the camera, which would be better only because, like I see the camera, I would see detail better, and it would see detail and shadow better. But while you would still see some issues like that, it would be different because, one, you can shoot a true RAW. Cell phones are still going to do in phone processing, so it's not true RAW. It'll dump as RAW, but there's still some in phone processing. I have Lizard photos. I don't know if I still have those on the computer or if they're on the external hard drive, but I have a couple that I could show you that would show the same type of situation as Kaleidoscope's photo. Color tone differences and things like that. So the difference is, like I say, in those zoomed in areas where you see like the noise and the shadows, that's a lot different because you're not getting that same artifacting. But again, too, you can see even with whatever noise is introduced into the photo, there's a fair difference between what the lens configuration on a cell phone is going to do versus what an actual lens and its components are going to do. It's different. And the biggest way you're going to see that is if you have where you're looking at the screen on the phone, which is small, versus looking at the computer screen, which is bigger. You'll see those detail differences more. Oh. No, Needham, I'll post you I'll message you my email on the Discord. I thought you had it already, but I can do the ones you posted on that you messaged me on the Discord. That's not gonna change anything. The only difference is and that's the thing too, doing a RAW versus a JPEG. To me, it doesn't make a difference because the JPEG version that I would pull off the Discord is going to be exactly what I'm going to use when I'm editing it. If I have a RAW file, so a RAW file on the computer, basically what it's going to be is it's going to be a bitmap representation of the RAW. So it's once it's on the computer and once you're looking at it, it's not RAW anymore. And it won't be RAW when you save it. The other thing is with RAW, your editing ability, there's most of the time, and I say this because most of the time, everything I do, I try to get it as, I don't want to say right, but as right as I can, as perfect as I can in the camera before I even look at it on the computer. So most of the time, you won't need RAW because the tiny bit of editing leeway you would have with RAW versus JPEG, you'll never see it. Especially if you're doing studio shots, where you're doing product shots, where everything you do, you have control over. So every single knife shot, I have control over. I have control over the light. I have control over the angle. I have control over what lens I use. I have control over everything. So there's no reason to use RAW. There's no reason at all. Because eventually, sooner or later, once I save that photo, it's going to be a JPEG anyway. It's going to be a PNG. It's going to be a TIFF, whatever it's going to be. It's not going to be RAW anymore. So most of the time when people are saying you should shoot RAW, RAW doesn't give you, this glorious abundance of editing prowess. It doesn't. Same thing you can do with RAW, you can do with a JPEG. And if you have blown highlights, if you have shadows that are too dark, you're not going to recover anything from those no matter what anyway. So, what you would see. Well, here's a perfect example right here. You got a shot here. It's at 200 PPI, which doesn't mean jack shit. Change it to a standard JPEG size, which is 72. And I do this all the time for RAW files, all the time for files that are, supposedly have the greatest information. So one thing you're going to see, let me share my screen again so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Dots per inch, pixels per inch, all of that, it's all mumbo jumbo nonsense. It is. Perfect example is going to be this right here. So the good thing about PaintShop Pro, I can change the numbers to be whatever I want. So let's say I change it from 200 to 72 pixels per inch, or if I did pixels per centimeter, whatever. I changed from 200 to 72. I changed my dimensions to 100%, which is going to be 100%. It gives me what my native print size would be. So if I took this picture right now and printed it, I could print it up to 56 inches on the long side with no discernible change in how it prints. Guaranteed. I do this. I've done this thousands of times with thousands of prints, and I could prove it every single time. A 300 DPI or DPI image is not going to do anything better for you except for it's going to reduce your native print size. Changing the numbers won't mean jack shit. It doesn't change how the picture looks. When you start changing the numbers in a RAW file from 300 and you start changing your dimension percentages, then you're going to see problems because you're trying to get something out of nothing. It's never going to work. And really, honestly, the lighting here would be the only thing that I would have an issue with, only because, not that it's bad, it actually looks pretty good. I would want to see if they were stonewash blades. I want to see a little bit more detail in the stonewash. So my two choices, what I would do for editing is I would use the built-in one-step photo fix, only to see what the computer thinks is good. And probably what I'll see is I'll see a little bit of, so you see how the background gets a little bit darker. The handle scales get a little bit more even color tone. This is the computer's idea of clarity fix. So instead of using that one-step photo fix, I'll do my own clarity adjustment because I can make this any range that I want. And typically what I do is I have it set for the highest strength, which on here is 20. And then what I'm going to do, and see it does the same thing. It makes those, it makes the background darker. It changes the tones on the scales, on the blade. Then after that, all I would do, honestly, with this one, I would probably deselect, or in this case, I would just I would erase. I would erase everything except for the blades, because the blades are what I wanted to see that stonewash detail in. And you can see as I erase, I'm losing all that detail in the background, but that I can fix. And that type of fix, it's either the first fix or the second fix, and you could do it backwards. I could do this one first, or I could do that one first. It wouldn't make a difference. The only difference would be what I'm deselecting. And there are selection tools you can use, plug-in selection tools, but having to go through the process of fine-tuning your selections, which basically does the same thing, it really, you won't notice much difference. But basically all I did was a simple clarity adjustment, and you'll see, like, you can see the grind pattern in the blade. You can see the stonewash in the blade versus the original, which you can see them, but they're not as pronounced. So where it's at like that, and of course I would erase into where the cutouts are, but for that we don't have to worry about it. If I didn't like, I would just change the opacity to a lower value. So it's changed, but it's not crazy. Then after that, if I wanted to change the background, I would just do another clarity adjustment. And then after that, I would just take the eraser tool and erase the knives out of it, so that I would have the background that I want. And the good thing about this is I don't have to be precise with the eraser, because I'm not going to see, like, the details in the edges. You won't see it. Most of the time when your eye sees it, you'll think it's just a shadow of the blade, or it's the it's just the way it looks. So basically you can fool your eyes into thinking it's seeing something that's not. And really, if it's a matter of how big or small my brush is, I'll just adjust the size of the brush. Or like coloring in the lines, I'll just go back, and I'll go back over where I didn't want to do it, and just reverse erase so it goes back to where it was. And the other good thing about this is, when I fine tune the layer opacity, it's going to make that effect a lot less pronounced. I won't see it. My eyes won't see it. So if there's any discrepancies in where I erased, I won't see it. The only other thing I see that could be a problem with the photo is the top and bottom being out of focus, which I would assume is maybe this is stairs, and this is a higher spot and a lower spot than where the subject is. What happens with that is it's just going to distract you, because your eye is going to have a tendency to want to center on the subject, which is, you would think is a good thing, but it's not, because while your eye is centering on a subject, your brain is telling you there's a problem, which would be these two out of focus areas. And that's, that could be a matter of depth of field, depth of field of how you shot. It could be that, like I say, this is higher and this is lower than your subject. But for that, you would want just a crop of the subject itself. You know, if you want something where you have that larger background, where you have more in the shot, you would have to shoot it that way. And you would have to make sure that these areas weren't a distraction. No, the range is it's not in your head. There's always a difference. But like I say, most of the time, if you apply the same editing to a JPEG as you would a RAW, most of the time you won't see a difference. The only time you'll see a difference if there's dramatic issues with the photo, blown highlights, or black shadows. And the issue with that is, even with a RAW, if your white is white and black is black, that's the bottom line. You can't put something into white that's not there. You can't take something out of black that isn't there. White is white and black is black. If it's blown, it's blown. RAW isn't going to help you. There's nothing that's going to change that. Nothing at all. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the world. That's how that's how things are. And there's, like I say, here's an example of changing the numbers. So I changed the numbers to 72 pixels per inch versus 200. Changed the dimensions back to 100%. There's no difference. No difference. The only difference is going to be your native print size. How big you can print before you have to change the numbers to print. And that's just going to give you issues. Lightroom is good. It doesn't have the depth that PaintShop Pro or Photoshop would have, but it's good enough. But the only thing I really don't like about Lightroom is the one step done type of thing, where you don't have to do any work. You open up the picture in Lightroom, you click a button, and you're done. There's no thought to it. You know what your presets are. This one will work for this picture. This preset will work for this picture. You're done. There's no real work involved. There's no real thought involved. I mean, it's rough to say, but that's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast. Yeah, the lighting, that's like I say, the tank lighting. And this is the issue with any kind of just anything. Fish, shooting fish through the aquarium, you have to fight the properties of the water, how the water affects the lighting. You have to fight shooting through the glass, which the biggest problem with fish is they don't stand still. So even with good lighting and a stabilized lens, you're still going to have you have to have a fast enough exposure that things like the gills opening and closing, the fins moving back and forth, where you can freeze that motion. If you're used to shooting sports, you'll know how to do it. Problem with the fish tank is how the water affects the light and how it affects refracting off of the fish. You would have to teach yourself how to shoot to where you're utilizing that light the best that you could, which would mean you'd have to sit there for a while and wait for the fish to be at the right angle, because you're going to have to put yourself, you're either going to have to use a polarizer, or you're going to have to put yourself at an angle where you're getting the least amount of refraction and the least amount of reflection from the glass in the water. So if you were able to pick and choose that, and you were able to have not better, but better light. Like if you were able to introduce light, not a flash, because the flash you wouldn't really be able to. I mean, I guess with the proper angle, if you could get the proper angle with a flash, and you bounce the flash instead of direct flash, you'd probably get a little bit better results. If it's with a cell phone, you're limited to, the flash is always going to be direct. The only thing you can do to change that is to put something under it and deflect it so it fills the room with light versus direct light. Unfortunately, most cell phone light flashes are not bright enough to fill a room. But if you practice with that, and I always say the same thing, even for on-camera flash, like the pop-up flash on a camera, stick a spoon under it. Get yourself a silver tablespoon, and you stick the spoon under the flash, and just angle it so that it's going up into the ceiling or into a wall. It's going to give you a more diffuse light. The only difference with that is how the cell phone or how the camera is going to translate the exposure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That photo in particular, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's not right. The one main issue, which is it's not bad, but it's not good. So having to direct your angle to where everything is straight. I don't want to say straight, but so it's straight. It's going to be better for the photo visually, because you're not getting that feeling of I don't want to say vertigo, but you're not being pulled to and out of angle line, especially since you have the natural direction of the seams in the wood. You want to maintain that type of angle. So where my linear, like the linear look of it, so where the crack in the wood is, it's kind of straight across to where the wood plane is, and to where the oh shit, what the hell did I just do? Oopsie. It would be the same as the linear part of the wood here, which translates to your lines here. So you can see what I just did. I use what Paint Shop Pro calls the pick tool. It's basically your transform. Photoshop would be transform, warp. You can see where, depending on how you're looking at the picture, this, if you're looking at this becomes more angular, which is distracting. It's going to distract your eye. If it was straighter, and it's the same thing here. So this is a little bit straighter plane, so you don't see it as much. But if you're looking here, you're like your brain having a feeling of falling off, like I don't know what you would call it, but it makes the whole picture turn. Whereas if it was straight, it's a lot better visually to not have that at tilt. You know what I'm saying? The shot itself, really, the original, I got no problem with it. I thought it was fine. I would still, like I say, I would still want to have more detail in the blades, only because visually, if I was holding that knife in my hand, I would see that detail better. So I would want to emulate that with my editing. If it was something where, here, I got a perfect example. Actually, I got a couple perfect examples, but I got a perfect example. So the Black Snow Custom, if you have this knife in your hand in person and you see this freaking grind, it's, oh my God, it is so beautiful. So when you're looking at that in person, you want to see that. This photo doesn't really show it as much as a different photo would, to where what you're seeing in person is what you're seeing in the photo. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things that you look at and you say, holy cow. When you're looking at a photo, if I had this picture in my hand and I had this knife on this background, I want the picture to look exactly like this. That's it. If that's the way the room was lit, that's the way the color looked to my eye, that's what I want to see in the picture. Because later on in life, if I don't have this knife anymore and I want to look at it and go, wow, I missed that knife, that's what I want to see. I want to see the knife. In the same regard, so knives like the Wee Thug XL, that knife, if I can't photograph that brushed, that handle scale, the brushing on that handle scale, holy cow. If I can't see that in a picture, if I can't get the same feeling looking at that picture that I did looking at the knife when it was in my hand, ain't no point in taking a picture. No point at all. That milling, brushing, whatever you want to call it, that on the clip, on the handle, you look at that knife in person, I gotta look at it in the picture, it's gotta be the same. It's gotta look the same. The same thing with the carbon fiber. And the thing with carbon fiber, it's gonna look different under different light, under different angles. But if I took that knife and I laid it on this carbon fiber in the same light and had it in my hand, it's gonna look identical. It won't look any different. It's gonna look identical. The way it looks on this cloth, in this light, if I hold it in my hand in that light, it's gonna look identical. It's just the way I taught myself to shoot. It's the way I do everything. Because I learned that from shooting cars. I would go to car shows and guys would have their binder of Polaroids out, showing the build and how long it took to build it, and okay, cool. Well, the car is awesome. Pictures look like shit. So later on, when you sell the car, whatever, you're gonna look at all these pictures and you go, yeah, I used to like that car. Or would you rather look at pictures that when you go out into your garage and you look at the car and you get that sense of pride and love and blood, sweat, and tears, man, that thing is beautiful. Don't you want to look at the picture and say the same exact thing? Man, that's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want, that picture has to represent, and that's like I say, when I was doing product shots where you had to show the product and had to make sure that the person buying it, the person viewing it, wanted to buy it, you had to make it look right. So that's why I don't like putting a lot of stuff in my photos, because I want to see the knife. I want to see the product. I don't care, it could be anything. It could be a knife. It could be it could be a lanyard. It could be anything. Anything, whatever I want. Whatever I'm shooting, I want to see it. I want to know when I open the box, if I'm in this lighting and I open the box and it looks like that's what I want it to look like in the photo. if I got a top sitting on a desktop or whatever, and I look at it, if that's what it looks like in person, that's what I want it to look like in the photo. So stuff like this, really, like I say, there's nothing wrong with the original, except for that type of warp that you get from your lines. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just that's the thing. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not right. It's not wrong. But for something like that, it almost gets to the point of being right and wrong, where that's something where I would absolutely 100% think I can fix that, as opposed to, hey, it's fine the way it is. I don't really care about the lines. It's personal preference, but certain things, depending on how you look at them, you know what I'm saying? It depends on what you want to see and how you want to see it. Putting these angled like that closed, what's the difference of being portrait versus being landscape? Like, what's more appealing to your eye to see a landscape version of it, which to me, it gives me the feeling that I can pick up the knife with my hand. So it gives me a little bit better effect looking at it versus a portrait. So if I had the knife, give me a second. I mean, he had to pick a crappy knife, put that ugly ass Rosie in there, but let's say, for example, I've got a knife and it's sitting on a piece of wood or whatever, and I got it sitting here, and I want to pick it up. I'm going to pick it up. Versus looking at it like this, where I have it like that and I want to pick it up like that. That's personal preference. But that's going to determine how you stage the picture, how you address the subject, how you shoot it, what kind of angles you're looking at, things like that. Especially for things that are static, like a knife, when you shoot a knife. Angles, no matter what you're shooting, it doesn't matter. It could be a frog's ass. Lighting is number one. Lens is number two. After that, everything else is just, what do I want to see and where do I want to see it? Do I want to put the knife on my stairs and have it open? Do I want it to be fully open? Do I want it to be open 90 degrees? Do I want it to be, standing up? Do I want it to be, like that? That's personal preference. If the only person you have to please is yourself, photo can look like whatever you want. If you want to show it off, look at this. This I'm telling you, this is the simplest way to put it. When you look at that knife, why do you own that knife? Why? Why do you own it? The reason why you own it, when you want to show that picture, you want to show off the reason why you own that knife, you want people to get the same feeling that you get. So you want to represent that in a way where, like I showed the thug and the opiate. When you're holding those knives and you're looking at that kind of detail, and you're trying to explain to somebody, look at the finish, look at how awesome it is, but you don't have the knife in your hand, How are you going to explain to them what that looks like unless you have a picture that shows to where they would look at that and say, wow, I can touch that and I can actually feel that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all about feeling, and what's the mood you want to get across to your viewer. If the viewer is only you, well, you already held the knife, you know what it looks like, you know how you feel when you held it, so it don't matter. But no, that's what I'm saying. The perspective, it's not the perspective, and that's where people get into trouble with rules, and that's where people get into trouble with where they know there's a problem and they can't figure out why. It's because there's always something rough when you're shooting something that's linear. So take away the knives, pretend there's no knives there, you're just shooting a block of wood. It's going to look like crap because it's crooked. So your choice is to rotate the image so it's straight, but if you see where it's straight here, it's not going to be straight everywhere else. You're changing. This is where stuff like the free transform on Photoshop or the pick tool here, that's where it has the most benefit, because you can change these lines without really altering the photo itself. So the little bit of warp that's applied to the knives, no matter what you do, if this is the photo you see versus the original, your brain would never know that was transformed in editing. You would never know it. You can't tell. There's so little effect done to the knives and so much done to this area. And in the same regard, that's the issue that you're going to run into with depth of field, subject separation, things like that, where this is out of focus, this is out of focus. That's where you're going to look at it and you're going to say, hey, well, something's, hey, it's a great photo, the knives look beautiful, but there's something off. There's something off to me. I don't know what it is. And the problem is, for me, I'll see that stuff right away. I'll see it right away. There could be, you could have the tiniest possible speck. Okay, you could have the tiniest speck of a speck, and I would see it. And I got the worst eyesight known to man. But if that speck was there, even if the picture was zoomed out, I can still see it. I could pick that out, and I could get rid of it right now. And my eyesight sucks. This is what reading glasses on, and I can see it a mile away. My brain, for some reason, the dumbest stuff that's in a photo, my eyeballs go right to it. Drives me insane. But it makes me a better editor. It makes me a better photographer, because sometimes I'll catch that stuff before I shoot. I'll wipe off the blade. I'll do what it takes to make the shot as best as I can when I'm shooting it, before I'm shooting it. Uh-oh, what did I miss? Who got attacked? Yeah, Lightroom is good for exposure adjustments. Depending on what presets you use. I honestly don't even remember if I have Lightroom on here anymore. I use it so sparingly. Yeah, I don't have it on here, that I stopped using it. If there was something that I was going to do that I thought it would be useful, anything I would do at Lightroom, I would just use with Topaz Just, where I would want to do those one step, like, a dynamic clarity adjustment, or trying to think of what. Maybe the photo pop, something like that. But I can get the same results out of doing a simple clarity adjustment. And to me, that's the same, it's the same process as opening up Lightroom and going through all that nonsense. Yeah, it's not that I wasn't impressed. That's the thing. That's why I hate talking about photography and making it sound bad. I don't like using words like fix, because listen, I've seen horrible photos. Horrible. I've seen horrible photos sell for millions of dollars. And I can't wrap my head around why. And the reason why is because what I like isn't what everybody else likes. Where I might think a photo could use repair, where it has issues, my opinion is my opinion. It don't mean jack shit. If you like the picture, that's all that matters. The problem is when nobody says anything and you yourself tell yourself, boy, that could be better. I wish I could do better. And then you start exploring how to do better. It's like I say, I never talk bad about anybody's photos. If I poke fun at somebody, it's only to poke fun. It's never in seriousness. If I offer help to people editing, it's only because I would see something that could be better, maybe color tone, exposure, clarity, things like that. Things that are really simple to fix that would make a really good improvement. But most of the time, any picture is better than no picture at all, and that's the bottom line. I've got a picture of my Rottweiler that's probably one of the worst pictures I could ever look at, and I don't care because I don't have that dog anymore. I love the dog, and I don't have any good pictures of it because I had him before I became a photographer. So that picture, shitty scan of a Polaroid, I love that picture because it's a picture of my dog. That's just the way it is. If I had the chance to have better pictures, you're damn right I want better pictures. But you can only do what you can do. And like I say, these shots, at least lighting and color, there's not much I would change in that regard. If I was going to do any, like if I wanted a little bit more boost in color, only to bring out color in the wood or something like that, if I wanted to make the wood a little bit more rustic, I guess, like woodish looking. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. But I would just keep doing those type of adjustments to where I would get that effect. That's just that's just what I would do. But and that's the thing too. You're at the mercy of. You're walking down the street and you see the perfect opportunity for a photo and you take a photo. That's what it is. You don't have a choice over lighting. You don't have a choice over background other than putting it on the background. You don't really have other choices, other options. Yeah, Kay Carson, he was a pro photographer. I would assume that he was good at what he did. Some people are good at people. Some people are good at product. Some people are good at cars, whatever. I try to be, as best I can for whatever subject I aim my cameras at. I really don't change my shooting style for anything. The way I would shoot a knife is the same way I would shoot a dog. Like I don't. It's all the same. It's all angles and light and um, um, you know, how you want the subject to address the camera, how you want people to see the subject. There's really no, and that's the thing too. There's no right or wrong. There's never a right or wrong. Never. There's no rules. There can't be. You know, if it was a matter of rules, there's, it winds up being subjective, and you can't please everybody. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants to see what they want to see. There's no you can't look at it in the perspective of rules. You start doing shit like that, and then you're just going to suffer. Your photos are going to suffer. And the photos of the thug, it wasn't shit photos. It was just, it could be better. But you're in the environment that you're in. That's the best photo. That's the best photo. There's no good or bad. There's no knocking it. Would you want it to be better? Of course. Who wouldn't? But it is what it is. You've got the knife in your hand. You don't need pictures. You got the knife. And that's the thing, if you think the picture is bad, you have to understand why you think it's bad. Not because somebody told you it was bad. Me telling you your baby is ugly, well, fuck me. Your baby is the most beautiful thing in the world to you. Could be ugly to me, but that don't mean jack shit. It ain't my baby. I can say whatever I want. It don't mean nothing. Don't mean a damn thing. That's what people don't understand. Like, you can't. There's no application of opinion. Opinion don't mean jack shit. You take a vote and 100 people, and 90 of them say your baby's ugly, and 10 of them say it's pretty. Well, guess what? Those 90 people can go fucking suck a ball. Their opinion don't mean jack shit. Now, if you wake up and you look at your baby and you go, "Holy crap, that's an ugly baby," that's for you. That's for you. That's got nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with anybody else. And all babies are ugly. They are. When they're first born, they all look like fucking wrinkled up dog shit. But they grow up and they get pretty as they go. Some of them. Lord Needham might recognize this one. This one look familiar? I was just playing with this one this morning, as a matter of fact. So here's a good example of how you like linear differences. Certain things in pictures would be distracting. The way to tell is, so let's say this top line is not straight with the frame of the photo. this right-hand side has a little bit of difference of colors showing next to the linear application of the box. It's not distracting because everything that you want to see is here. And where there's fall off, so your focus fall off here, and where there's issues with the lines at the top and the right, you won't really see that. But a way to see how those affect the photo is take them out. So let's say where I want my subject to be is in the middle of the photo. Or it's in an area where, so when I say middle, for this one, vertically middle. So everything's centered vertically, or enough, centered enough. Your eye is going to be drawn to that mainly because everything on the outsides is almost monotoned. So you don't really have anything to divert your eyes. So whether or not those issues, those linear issues would be seen, you're really not going to notice it. You're really not going to care because your focus is going to be drawn here almost the whole time. The only time you're going to notice these is if you look at that part of the picture, which even if you do, your mind is still going to make your eye go to the centralized area. So stuff like that, looking here, same thing. This area where you see the wood, this area where the paint is not straight to the frame of the photo, you notice it, but you don't care because your eye is going to be centralized to where the subject is. Anything else, stuff like this, where you have a difference in directional things. So stuff like carbon fiber, stuff like this, we have wood grain, and you have the grain of the satin finish on the blade. You kind of have to pick and choose your angles for that, where you lay the blade in relation to that, just so it's complementary. You don't want to shoot it where these lines on the blade are 90 degrees to these. You don't want to shoot them where they're straight. It's not perfect to do that, but that's what would happen. It's too perfect. Like you'd have to line it up perfectly linear or perfectly 90 degrees, and in a photo, it's going to look like crap. You have to have you have to have a certain type of angular look to it for things like that. So like the floor shots, where you would look at how the grain of the floor goes with the direction of the knives. And that's why I always choose several different angles. I will not change. So when I lay stuff down on a background, I put it down with a purpose. Then all I have to do is match the way I lay it out. I have to match that in my head in the camera. So I have to pick the angle that will represent what I want to see in the picture. So depending on, and obviously certain pictures I won't pick because it would take more editing to fix the highlights, and something like this I would just reshoot. The way the blades are laid for this orientation, it doesn't work. The same regard here, where the lines of the wood are going a different direction angularly, it's still the way the knives are laid out, it wouldn't work. It's not appropriate for that type of view. So when I lay the knives down, if this is what I want to see, this is what I have to shoot. I have to pick the angles that show me when I was sitting there laying these out, that's where I want to see it. If there was a minor difference in, and it's gonna, this is gonna look dumb, but if there was a minor difference in the angle of the wood, if that was different, I would have shot it like that. If my brain when I was shooting it said, "Hey, that's got to be, tilt the camera, 10 more, which I tend, I don't know, 5 degrees or 10 degrees in my head, but I would tilt it just that much to represent getting those angles in the wood to look better with the angles of how I laid out the knives." Yeah, sometimes babies are they're yeah. There's really no kind way to put that, is there? I mean, they're fucking ugly when they're born. That's for damn sure. My my daughter, my first daughter, my second daughter, they were C-sections, so they didn't get all scrunched up and get pushed out. But I think they're beautiful. They were beautiful when they were born, but even I'll say, that's a wrinkly, wet, red mess for sure. they're not all the cracked up to be when they're born. They get pretty though. They're beautiful. This Cole is a great guy. I think he's an awesome guy. I don't knock his photo skills. Obviously, he's a good photographer. It shows up in his photos. I don't know. There's not really any way of putting it without sounding like an asshole, but I don't put much faith in his ability to judge photos, only because some of the issues that he finds with photos are things that shouldn't have to be fixed. They should have been fixed before the photo was even shot. Things like lighting, things like angles, and there's things that he finds issues with that there's nothing you can do about. Blown highlights or cut shadows or things like that are going to happen and can't be fixed. And he also has to realize that some of the photos that he's roasting, a lot of these guys don't have photography skills. They don't have cameras. They're using their cell phones, and they're, it is what it is. You can't have perfect photos all the time. I don't have perfect photos. I guarantee I don't have perfect photos. The only time my photos look good is because I don't show you guys the bad ones. I mean, that's as simple as it is. I've got how many here? 20, 30 photos, and you guys have seen one. That's I go to the zoo, I take pictures. I got two cameras with me most of the time. I've got 500, 1,000, 2,000 pictures in each camera. I'm not showing you all the bad ones. I pick the ones that I think are good. I edit them, and that's what everybody sees. There you go. It's a Artform clone, which I kept seeing this knife and kept thinking to myself, I know I've seen the knife somewhere before, and I could never remember what it was. And then one of the guys on the Discord said, "That's an Artform." I said, "Damn it, that's what it was. It was a slim foot." So I can't realize why I couldn't figure out what the hell I saw that from. You're saying for me, don't filter it? I try to filter things because I typically don't have a filter. I pretty much say whatever's on my mind, um, which for the most part usually is okay because I'm an honest guy and I don't like beating around the bush. But I'm also, not a heartless prick, so I don't like saying things that are gonna seem like they're offensive when they're not. Um, like I say, I think he's a good photographer. I like a lot of the stuff he does. I just think he's a little bit more nitpicky than he needs to be. Which that goes nothing to say nothing because doing the roasts to me, that's fun. Like that's fun. He don't mean no harm by it. He only means help by it. So there's no foul for that. I don't find no fault in that. And I'm not the end all of fucking photographers. There's plenty of photographers that are better than me. It's just that I do things a certain way, and I expect things to look a certain way, and that's what I want. I don't make a lot of comments on people's photos because I really don't get I don't get the feeling of it. I'll look at a photo and say, yeah, that looks nice, but that's it. Like I don't. If you don't give me something to see in the subject matter, I move on to the next thing. That's just the way I am. That's what my brain is. A lot of mental issues to deal with to not worry about nitpicking over stuff. I look at stuff and I mean it's just like watching TV shows. Some TV shows you're just not going to watch because it ain't your thing. Some photos I'm going to look past them because it's not my thing. Um, well, I don't know what else. I was gonna do. Um, I was gonna set up a shoot, but I'm limited by my one lens. I couldn't find my other lens. I don't use it, so it's put away, and I couldn't figure out what the hell box I put it in. Um, but the other thing with that is, if I set up a shoot, I have the equipment I need to make the shoot as good as I can before I edit it. So my lighting is going to be good. My angles are going to be good. There's really no way of translating that to someone that doesn't have similar equipment. If all you're using is your cell phone, there's just the limitations of it being a cell phone. You can't really introduce better lighting. Um, like the lizard photos, you have to change the lighting. And if it takes something simple like putting a piece of paper in front of the lighting, if that's what you got to do, that's fine. But now you have to worry about, you got to carry a piece of paper with you everywhere you go when you want good lighting. Are you going to be able to change the lighting? It's there's too many variables. Photography is only good because there's such an abundance of equipment. The problem with that is my camera bag, my backpack with just my two cameras and my lenses in it, it weighs 40 pounds. You really want to drag around 40 pounds, plus drag around a case or two with a tripod in it, plus another case with lighting in it? Come on. That's ridiculous. You're not going to do it. That's why you have to teach yourself the lighting that you have, how to use it to the best of its ability. You know, there's no way around it. There's always going to be issues. Lighting, no matter what, lighting is number one. And you can teach yourself how to use lighting. Just move. Don't stick yourself in one place. Don't. So let's say you're going to take a picture of a knife outdoors. Put it where you're going to put it, and don't just stand in one spot and take a couple of shots and go, okay, I'm done. Move to the left a foot, move to the right a foot. Crouch down, stand up taller, change your angles. Take 20 different pictures of every angle you could possibly do. Then when you're looking at those, you can see how the light affects the subject and how it reflects, how it refracts, how the shadows are, how the background is. Then you can start teaching yourself off of those photos how to approach a subject where pretty soon you won't have to think about it. You'll just lay the subject down and shoot it, and that 1 or 2 shots will be the best ones you can do. That's all there is to it. Other than that, the equipment is the only obstacle. Where you're always going to get better quality of photo as far as noise and artifacts and color tones and things like that. You're always going to get something better from the sensor on a digital SLR. Second, after lighting is always the lens, the quality of the lens. You could take, the greatest photo in the world with a cell phone, and take that same photo with a crappy camera lens, and it's going to look like crap. That's just the nature of the beast, and that's why camera lenses. That's why they're so expensive. You could buy a camera body for nothing, and spend 10 grand on lenses. That's just the way it is, because the lens, that's where all your ability is. Well, you guys got any other questions about editing? I can run through the knife photos that I have already. I've been trying to think of what would be good editing. I can't really, let's see. You guys get to look at all the pictures that are on my phone over the years. Actually, we pick a knife. I don't really know how I can really emulate shitty lighting, but let's see what we can do here. So here's the knife. Just my fan light, which, like I say, throws a warm color, orangish color. Here's my cell phone, which is an iPhone, whatever the heck it is. So right here, with the shadow, which you guys can't see because my hand is in the way, there's a shadow that cuts through half of it. So what I'll do is I'll pull myself back and I'll use the zoom on the phone, now there's no shadow. So if I shoot the shot, which is going to take a minute to upload to the computer. So that's what it looks like out of the phone. So obviously, apart from being cockeyed at the keyboard and the top of the desk, which I could I could change. I could use the pick for this program. The pick tool, Photoshop would be the free warp or the transform, and I could try to at least fix those linear issues. The problem with that, depending on how big they are, how strong they are, you're going to end up warping the knife. So you'd have to kind of pick and choose, the best of what you have, and go from there. So probably I would do something like that and crop it down. But the way the lighting is, you're really not going to have too much ability with editing. Depending on what you want the overall look to be, you're probably going to do your basic exposure, brightness, things like that, which you could do on the phone itself. You can change your exposure values. You can change your clarity and your sharpness and everything. But you would just have to look at like how good you want the knife to look. Obviously, depending on the angle. This was a single angle, and it's like I said, if you were gonna do something, the 2 seconds it took to take that shot, I'm gonna at least where I'm aiming the camera, maybe come this way a little bit, go that way a little bit, this way, change my angle so that it's addressing the light better. And that's going by, if that's the only light I have to work with, I'm going to try to do the best I can with that light. I'm going to try to find the right angle, find the the best way to have that light represented, to the phone. So now they're all going to be called wrinkled dog shit now. Anytime we talk about a baby, we'll just say wrinkled dog shit. That's going to be a thing on the Discord now. I can just see it. I can feel it in my bones. And that's the other thing too. Depending on how you're seeing, like obviously I had the lights on the keyboard. The keyboard's dirty, stuff like that. I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna reshoot it. Like I would clean up the keyboard, clean off the top of the desk, make sure the knife is clean. I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look better. So, I would do what I could do to make it look better before I tried editing it. And there's always certain times where there's not going to be anything you can do. You're stuck with how the subject is going to wind up looking just normally. There's really sometimes not much you can do. That's the same for whether you use a camera or not, whether you use a cell phone or not. It's just the nature of photography. It's it's only going to be as perfect as your environment. It's only going to be as perfect as your subject and your background and your lighting and your ability. You know, it's just the way it is. Oh, that's good coffee. Look at this little guy. Isn't he cute? Come on, focus. Look at. Isn't he cute? Little like zombie rockabilly looking dude. Ain't he cute? He's all right, huh? And look at this. Look at that. Look at. Oh my. Oh my God, it's dirty. Where's my microfiber? I need my microfiber. Oh boy. Excuse me while I whip this out. All you young guys won't know what that's from. And all you old guys, if you do know where that's from, you know it's funny as fuck. Look at this. Uh-oh. Don't look at my arm. Look at my hand. Look at this. Isn't that just beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Look at how nice that is. Look at that. Would you look at it? Just look at it. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't it just a, look at here. I'll help you guys. I'll take the lanyard off just for you guys. Look at that. Look at how nice that is. And it slices so nice. I would love to send that Nirvana clone and my Build a Butcher clone. I would love to get hollow grinds on those. That Nirvana is so nice, but it needs a high hollow grind so bad. And I don't have my equipment anymore. I haven't had it for years. But that thing just it needs a hollow grind really bad. Really bad. If it has a clip, it can get a lanyard. Who needs lanyard holes when you got clips? Oh, I love this knife. I love all knives. You can't help it. I'm crazy for knives. I wonder who. All right, folks. What else you want to see? What else you want to do? What else you want to edit some stuff? What do you want to do? Focus. Tell Paul I said hi. Oh, that's bad. That's terrible. That's terrible. I'm going to take a little visit to the Discord and see what you monkeys are up to in there. All right. Isn't that wonderful? Move those around. Put them where I want. Yeah. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Nice of it focused. Piece of crap. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't that nice? You guys all wish you had one of these, don't you? Well, guess what? You can't. Sorry. This one's mine. Staying with me. Not going anywhere but here. Yeah, I think we're going to end. If you guys want, obviously, get on the Discord and get in that photo category, the photo section. Whatever questions you got, ask. I'm not the only photographer there. Keith can answer questions. Cole can answer questions. I am not, by any means the end all of photography, but I have a shit ton of information and skills, so I can, you guys got questions about stuff, or you want to have put up photos that you want me to edit to see if there's improvements to be made or whatever. Just let's get that section going. Let's get some good tips and tricks and stuff in there. And I shot so many things. There's not a subject that I can't give you information on. So, I'm here to help. If you guys want the help, I'm here to help. I don't mind it at all. And with that, let's call it a day. I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'm a little hungry. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I hope that it was somewhat informative. I hope it gave you guys a little bit of insight into things you could do to photos. If it happens that we do another one of these photography themed, I'm going to try to dig up my other lens, and then what I can do is I can actually do a setup, show you how I usually use my flash, show you how to lay out the angles and stuff like that to you guys can see what goes into getting at least what would be considered a product shot, something that's similar to just static shots of subjects. It's a good way to learn, and it's like I said before, anything you shoot, it's all going to shoot the same, whether you're shooting an animal, a knife, a car, a tree, a person. It's all about lighting and angles. It's all about lens choice. And how you would shoot one subject is the same way you would shoot another, because you're always going to have the same things. You're always going to have certain types of light at certain types of angles, certain types of reflection, certain types of refraction, certain types of color tone. It all ends up translating the same in the end, especially when you're editing. All of the editing tricks, you're going to use them the same, because you're going to run into where the way that you edited a knife photo yesterday could be the same way that you're editing a person photo today, because the lighting was the same or similar, the reflections were the same or similar. It all translates to the same. So, gentlemen, appreciate your time. Y'all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you on the Discord. Bye-bye.